I'm in the Reddit groups, I'm on the TikTok. This was a weird one. I'm nothing if not basic. I really need to visit Ireland. So thankful for the time period that I'm in, but was unfortunately a miss for me. I will be reading this series to the very end. Hello, beautiful book people of the internet. I'm back. After a brief hiatus, I am going to today be talking about all the books that I've read so far in 2025. I feel like this is the reading year that everyone is hating, but I am loving. I've been reading so many good books lately, and this is the end of May when I'm recording this. I don't know why I didn't just wait till the end of June and then make it halfway through the year, but I wanted to talk about these books today, so here we are. So my book reading journey is very complicated. I was a big reader as a child. I kind of fell off in college, coming back a little bit now. I'm an English major. I have never successfully read 50 books though. I tried in 2018 all the way up through last year, and I always fail. The closest I've gotten is like 40 books, but that's not enough. And right now, technically I'm one book behind, but I'm basically on track for reading and getting my reading goal. This is the closest that I've ever been and the longest that I've been able to maintain my streak. So I'm really, really trying to get to 50 books this year. So I'm hoping that posting here will help me stay accountable for that goal. Anyways, so I read 19 books this year. I'm just gonna run through and talk about them really quick. A lot of them are very popular books. I'm nothing if not basic. Okay, so I started off the year by reading the Boys of Tommen series, what it was at the time. I have not read Releasing 10 yet. Releasing 10 just got released this week, so I'll be going to Target soon to get that. But what a phenomenal start to the year. Binding 13 is an absolutely amazing series. The Boys of Tommen is absolutely amazing. I don't know what it is about it. It just felt so real, and I love books about really good friend groups, and it just felt like I could visit Cork. Everything felt so vivid in my brain. The characters were so beautiful. Lots of deep topics. I just loved it. I have a feeling I will be reading this series to the very end. I will be invested until the very, very end, and I'm so excited to get my hands on Releasing 10. But my first 5 books of the year were Binding 13, Keeping 13, Saving 6, Redeeming 6, and Taming 7. All phenomenal, all highly, highly recommend. I think the series builds upon itself, and I'm in the Reddit groups, I'm on the TikToks. I'm really curious about how the rest of the series is gonna go, but those books, absolutely amazing, amazing, super phenomenal. Okay, after the Boys of Tommen series, I was in a fat reading slump. So I read this thriller called We Were Never Here. An influencer recommended it as like a good thriller palette cleanser, and it was honestly horrible. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars on Goodreads. The premise of it is really cool. They are these 2 best friends, and they go on different trips around the world together, and sketchy things always happen on the trips. And as you like go through the book, you kind of see everything from like one friend's perspective, and the other friend is they just get themselves in a lot of weird situations, and it happens often enough to where it stops becoming a coincidence. My biggest qualm with this book was there was no ending. Like, the point of a thriller is it's kind of intense. You like want to keep reading. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. Those are the marks of a good thriller. And most thrillers do that, but I think the difference between a meh thriller and a really good thriller is the end. Like, are you able to actually deliver on that promise of like the buildup and the suspense and have like an epic last couple scenes? And this book felt totally flat for me. I did not enjoy it at all. Probably one of the worst books that I'll read this year, which is really unfortunate because I don't dabble in thrillers too much, but I like the idea of them, and I don't know, I might be turned off for a little bit. After that though, I read Onyx Storm. Classic. I have been pretty mid about the Fourth Wing series. Like, I do enjoy reading them. I am not as obsessed with them as a lot of people on the internet are. I will say though, Onyx Storm was my favorite. I thought Onyx Storm was excellent. I really like kind of later in series couples. Like, I like when couples are already established. I never really liked Xaden, and I actually love Xaden and Onyx Storm. I loved the missions. I loved the bouncing around to the little islands. I loved like the quest for Andarna and everything that's going on with her. I just thought it was really well done. I also loved Violet in this. I know Violet is like, people have lots of different opinions about her, but she really came to her own in this. I have lots of thoughts about the ending. I won't spoil them, but Onyx Storm was my favorite. I'm obviously really excited to read the rest of the books in the series, so we'll see what happens there. After Onyx Storm, I read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This was a weird one. I read it for a book club, like a local bookstore book club that I didn't end up even going to because I didn't finish the book in time. It took me a really long time to read this book, like a month and a half. I was just reading it on my lunch break each day. It's fine. The premise is it's this horror movie obsessed girl, and she lives in rural Idaho, and essentially there is a serial killer, and no one really believes her, so she's kind of out there on her own trying to solve the serial killer mystery. And it just wasn't my thing. I didn't think the writing style was that good. Well, actually, I'll back up. The writing style was excellent. It was just not for me. And I think that a lot of the stuff maybe went over my head. Like maybe I'm like not smart enough to read the book. I don't know. But I didn't care about the characters that much. Never got super invested in them. So yeah, it was kind of another swing and a miss. But after My Heart is a Chainsaw, I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which was absolutely amazing. For those of you that don't know, I'm a history teacher. So any type of historical fiction I'm always really, really interested in. Nightingale was great. Absolutely great. It was so stunning. It was a beautiful story. Kristen Hanna is doing something really great with historical fiction. I have loved her books for many years, and this was no exception. Very startling portrayal of the sacrifices that people had to make during World War II. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was written in a really clear way. I frequently fluctuated because the story is about two sisters, and I struggled a lot sometimes with the choices that both of those sisters made, and they were not inherently likable characters, but that was what I think made the book so real, because they're not going to be likable characters. It's the middle of World War II. Like, there's so much else going on, and it taught me, I think, a lot about the means that people will go to survive and the means that people will sacrifice in the name of survival. And it was really fascinating, beautiful, like, ending to the story. So highly, highly recommend that one. I gave that book 5 stars. Okay, after The Nightingale, I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I am a fantasy girl at my core. I read so many fantasy when I was younger, and fantasy series are really, really fun for me because I was obsessed with them when I was younger. And this is a really cool series. It's like kind of vampires, and there's trials, so that's very standard, and a lot of that reads like a lot of other fantasy books that I've read. There are some twists in the story though that make it unique, and that was what was so fun for me. Is a lot of times with fantasy you read the same thing over and over again and it becomes a little bit repetitive. This felt very original for some twists that happened towards the end of the book that I can't really talk about and I don't want to give away, but I ate it up. I loved the, I guess, male love interest. I thought the side characters were super cool. I really liked the female main character. It was a very likable cast, and those twists at the end made me really, really obsessed and excited. I'm actually reading book 2. I'm reading a lot of books right now, but I'm reading the second book in the series. It's a series, but it's divided into duologies, so it's like 2 books about one couple, I guess, 2 books about another, 2 books about another, and I'm getting through the second one right now. And so far it's really good. So if you're also like kind of want some romantasy but want something a little bit different, this book is great. I've also heard really good things about the author's Daughter of No Worlds series, so I'm going to be checking that out again because she's an excellent author. From there, I read my very first Emily Henry book. Hopefully you're starting to see what I mean by having a really good reading year. It's because I'm just late to all of these books that have already been super popular. But Funny Story was great. I didn't really like it in the middle, and then it kind of built upon itself in the end. Same thing, I don't have much to add to the discourse about Emily Henry. I loved Funny Story. I liked the message behind it. I loved the side characters. Honestly, my favorite plot line was Daphne finding herself and Daphne's friendship with her coworker Ashley. I didn't find the male love interest to be anything too special, but the actual like characters and her living her life and her struggles all felt very relatable as a girl that's also in her 20s. So I loved that a lot. And a side note, I listened to the book because I was on the way back from a road trip. And it was the first audiobook that I've listened to in a really long time. And I don't know if I'm an audiobook girl. Let me know what you think. I don't know. I think I like reading books more because audiobooks I just get so distracted. But let me know your thoughts. And from there, I picked up Throne of Glass. So I've read the Throne of Glass books very sporadically because I am getting them from the library. So a lot of times, like, I don't have control over when I read them or not, but I've read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and I'm in the middle of Assassin's Blade right now. I've never read Throne of Glass before. I have no idea. I was in the fantasy world in like 2015 when all of this was coming out. I never read Sarah J Maas though. I've discovered her as an adult, I suppose. But Throne of Glass, I don't have anything much else to add. It's really, really fun. It's a beautiful fantasy book. And what I like so much about it, and I don't know if you like get this necessarily in fantasy books nowadays, is I feel like Sarah J Maas is really taking her time with it. Like there's some big, deep, elaborate world developing and character developing, and you have main characters for the series that aren't even introduced until book 3. And it's been so nice to just slowly like ease into a world and discover the backstory and the drama and the reason why all this is happening. And I have a feeling that it's going to build to a pretty epic like last couple of books, and I'm really, really excited about that. I have no clue where it's going to go. Maybe I'll do some little later Throne of Glass reading vlogs because I'm really enjoying it. But I'm also reading it in order. So I'm reading Assassin's Blade right now. I did not read it first. I'll have opinions on if like I thought that was the best thing or not later on. But I've absolutely been loving that. So in case you haven't heard of it, Throne of Glass is pretty good. I then read The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. This was such a funny book because it's set in Cork. So it's the same setting as the Boys of Tommen series. I really need to visit Ireland. But this was such a good book. It's just about a girl in her 20s. Girl in her 20s living in Ireland. She's got a roommate and he is hilarious and they just get into all this mischief together, and it's just about being young and in your 20s and being broke and living with roommates and discovering yourself and figuring out your standards and having jolly good nights and figuring out what your morals are. And it was just so phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars. I think it really captured well the chaos of being broke and living with roommates in your 20s. That's a very niche experience. I am living that right now because I'm in my 20s and I'm living with roommates and we are as chaotic as can be. And the book made me feel so validated and it made me so thankful for the time period that I'm in. But it also made me realize that things are going to be okay after, because the book does follow once the roommates move out and once life goes on and once people do grow up a little bit. And as someone that is so scared of moving out of my place, like the place that I lived in my 20s and my home, it's just like nice that it'll be okay. And I think that it's tough to capture some of those like niche human experiences, and it was great. It didn't feel nostalgic. It felt fresh, and it just left me with a lot of hope, and it was wonderful. It's very much contemporary fiction. It's very vibey. Not too much. Actually, I was going to say not too much happens, but there are some pretty interesting plot points, but those would be spoiler alerts. So you should go read it. I loved it. And then I read Sunrise on the Reaping. I was so excited for this book. Like so excited. And it was a phenomenal story. I will give it that. I'm only going to give it 4 stars though, probably. I have 2 issues with it. The first issue is I don't think it was written that well. I think it felt choppy, and the actual writing didn't feel as descriptive and as meaning and as moving as some of Suzanne Collins' other works. And I'm not a hater on the prequels because I loved Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I think it was just something about the writing that didn't do it for me. And then the other thing is I really like, and I have to be careful with how I word this, I really like in Sunrise on the Reaping how this book was really closely tied together with the original trilogy. Like I loved that part of it and a lot of the context that you get for the actual trilogy that when we read the original trilogy, we just didn't know what to think of. Like you can tell that Suzanne Collins has this big whiteboard somewhere and is like connecting all the dots for us. And I'm eating it up. I love it. Some of the cameos felt like a little unnecessary. Like it was just cameo after cameo after cameo. And I didn't love that. Like what I'm talking about is I loved Maisie Donner and like how she was incorporated, because in the original trilogy, we knew that she had the Mockingjay pen, but like we didn't know anything about her. And to get her backstory and fall in love with her is fascinating. I didn't love seeing Effie. Like seeing Effie didn't add anything to the story. We get some background on Effie, sure, but it's not done, and it is done in a way that it feels like it's just because Effie is a popular character. It's not done in a way that adds to this story necessarily. So I felt like, and that happened repeatedly, right? Like there were so many name drops of characters, and that just wasn't, I don't know. I loved how it connected to the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I just love that world. I don't think we're getting any more though. I'll put it on video now. I don't think we are getting another Hunger Games book. I think in a lot of ways there's everything to be told about the story has been told, and particularly the ending of Sunrise on the Reaping, it just felt very final. If that's us officially leaving the world, you know, when I finished these books when I was 14, like I didn't think we were gonna get anything else. So Sunrise on the Reaping in and of itself is a gift, but yeah. I like closed the book and was like, this is probably it. After Sunrise on the Reaping, I read Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Once again, very late to all these books. Beartown was great. I love an atmospheric book. I love small town, big characters. It was really, really great. I gave it 4 stars. I think it did what it was supposed to do really, really well. Will I finish the series? Time will tell. But I really liked what I read. My favorite character is Benji. I thought that the bouncing around with the point of views and just the prose were beautiful. Fredrik Backman has a beautiful way of writing. That's, I think, his definite strong suit is the way he describes scenes and the way that he builds on characters and the way that he explains human emotion. It was also stunning. So loved that. And then after Beartown, I read One Dark Window, which is also a very popular book, but was unfortunately a miss for me. I read the whole book in one day, basically one sitting on a flight from Europe back to the United States. I don't know. It didn't do much for me. The love interest I didn't care about at all. Some of the side characters were fun. The world just wasn't that interesting to me, honestly. I feel crazy for saying that. But yeah, I think I gave it 3 stars. I won't be continuing on with it. It didn't strike me as anything new, I suppose. There were some new fantasy elements to it, and I think there's like one specific kind of twist or like element that makes it different from the average fantasy story, but it didn't hit the mark with me. I didn't really care about the main character. That's always a surefire mark. She felt like every other female character in a fantasy book, and because I didn't care about the characters, even though there was this kind of cool plot point happening, I just didn't care. And then after One Dark Window, I read Yellowface. which I've read The Poppy War a really long time ago, so I'm not new to R.F. Kuang. The Yellow Face was good. I liked it a lot because it was set in DC and it was cool to see all the DC references, and as a reader, as a former English teacher, it's a book about plagiarism essentially, and I liked a lot of the kind of ethical questions about like what does it mean to have original work and original idea, and I like that she wrote a book about that because that's kind of interesting and not something that you see too much in literature, especially to the degree that this is a very famous author. She's a wonderful writer to her kind of degree about it. I think questions about plagiarism and what will constitute original work are only going to become more and more relevant because we're in the age of AI. So that was cool. The plot dragged a little bit. I read the book over the course of like 2 weeks, which is kind of slow for me for reading, but I did like certain parts of it. Okay, and that kind of wraps it up. I'm going to show you what I'm currently reading. So on the actual books, I'm reading Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This is the second book in Serpent and the Wings of Night series. I'm like a little ways through. I'm really liking it. It's pretty good. I'm trying to restrain myself and read it slowly. I'm also reading on my Kindle The Assassin's Blade. I don't know when the deadline for this is, or the due date, but it's probably coming up soon. The Assassin's Blade, I'm really liking. It's just taking me a while to read. Like, I don't feel a super strong like urgency to know what happens. So that's kind of a bummer, but I am liking it. Like, I will probably end up giving it 4 stars. For a prequel and for novellas, they're absolutely amazing. Other books that I have on my radar, I just checked out Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I'm so excited for that one as a history person and as someone that loves making different connections, and John Green's an amazing author, so that's going to be great. And at some point I'll read that. I kind of got to be in the right frame of mind to read nonfiction, so we'll see. But I'm excited about that. And at some point I'll get Releasing 10. I want to finish both of these before I read Releasing 10. And I'm a little bit stressed that once I have Releasing 10 in my possession, I'm going to just want to be reading that all the time. But I'll probably end up getting it anyways. So we'll see. I've got a very busy next couple of months and also a very busy summer, but I am so committed to getting to 50 books this year. It's the closest I've ever been. I keep failing. So I really want to do it, and hopefully I will keep you all more updated as I go along to succeed. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy and get your new favorite book. I'm manifesting everyone reads one of their new favorite books this upcoming month. Okay, bye!